The strange encounter *, the forest was quiet, too quiet. Only the sound of wind moving through the tall trees filled the air. The sun was low, painting the sky with orange light. Shadows grew longer, and every shape looked strange in the half-dark. Human traveler walked alone on the path. His name was David, a man used to long journeys, but tonight felt different. He could sense something watching him, something hidden. Still, he pushed forward. His boots crunched against dry leaves, each step sounding louder than he wished. David was far from home. He worked at a small research outpost not too far from this forest. Sometimes he walked here to clear his mind, but today he was restless. Something inside him told him this walk would not be like the others. As he moved deeper into the woods, a sound stopped him. It was faint at first, almost like the whimper of a lost animal. He froze and listened. Again he heard its soft cries, filled with fear and pain. It wasn't the sound of any creature he knew. It was different. Curiosity pushed him forward. His heart beat faster as he followed the strange sound. The cries grew louder, mixed with short gasps. They sounded close now, just beyond a wall of thick bushes. Carefully he pushed the branches aside and looked. His eyes widened. There, in a small clearing, lay a child. But this was no ordinary child. The being was small, maybe half the size of a human child. Its skin glowed faintly, a pale blue light that pulsed like the rhythm of a heartbeat. Its eyes were large, shining like liquid silver, filled with fear. Small ridges ran across its arms, and its clothes looked torn, as if it had been running. For a long time, David's breath caught in his throat. An alien. For years, people at the outpost had wondered if life existed beyond the stars. Rumors, stories, and strange signals had always sparked debates. But no one ever expected this. Not here, not now. The child whimpered again, clutching a small pendant that hung from its neck. Its tiny body shook, weak and frightened. David's first instinct was to step back. This was dangerous. If someone found him with an alien child, no one would believe his story. They might even think he was part of something illegal. He knew governments and corporations would kill to capture a creature like this. But then the child looked at him, those silver eyes locked onto his. For a moment, the forest went silent. No wind, no sound, only that gaze. The look was not one of anger or threat. It was a plea. A cry for help. David felt his chest tighten. This was not a monster. This was a child, lost and scared. He stepped into the clearing slowly, his hands open to show he meant no harm. "Hey, it's okay," he whispered, though he knew the child couldn't understand his words. The alien whimpered, pulling back, but it did not run. David crouched low, making himself small, trying to look less frightening. He reached into his bag and pulled out a water bottle. Unscrewing the cap, he set it down on the ground and pushed it toward the child. The child stared at it, then at him. Slowly, with trembling hands, it reached out and touched the bottle. A few drops spilled onto its lips, and its silver eyes softened with relief. David smiled gently. "That's it. You're safe now." But deep inside, he wasn't sure of that at all. The forest around him felt alive with tension. He could feel it. The child wasn't alone. Something else was out there. Something hunting. The child suddenly clutched at his arm, its tiny fingers surprisingly strong. Its gaze darted to the shadows beyond the trees, and its body shook harder. David followed its eyes. For a moment, he saw nothing but the dark shapes of the forest. Then movement. A tall figure slid between the trees, cloaked in black armor that gleamed faintly under the dying light. Another followed. Their heads turned slowly, scanning the ground, searching. David's blood ran cold. Hunters, the child pressed against him, hiding behind his shoulder. He could feel its heart racing, its breath quick and shallow. David's own thoughts screamed at him to run, to leave the child and save himself. But when he looked into those silver eyes again, he knew. He couldn't abandon it. Taking a deep breath, he whispered softly, "Don't worry. I'll protect you." The hunters moved closer, their strange weapons glowing faintly in their hands. The air grew heavy, thick with danger. David grabbed the child gently, lifting it into his arms. Its small body clung to him tightly, trusting him completely now. He moved slowly at first, then faster, deeper into the forest, keeping low and quiet. Every sound felt like thunder. Every step too loud. Behind him, the hunters stopped in the clearing. They bent low, scanning the ground. One of them picked up the water bottle David had left behind. A low mechanical growl echoed through the trees. They knew. David's heart pounded. He ran now, clutching the child against his chest. He didn't know where he was going, or how far the hunters would follow. He only knew one thing. He had just made a choice. A choice that would change his life forever. And somewhere beyond the trees, the real danger was only beginning. The choice. The forest was darker now. The last light of day had almost disappeared, leaving the trees painted in long shadows. David's breath came fast as he held the small alien child close against his chest. The glow from the child's skin faintly lit his path, just enough for him to see where he was running. His mind screamed at him, "What are you doing?" He could still turn back, leave the child behind, and no one would ever know. It wasn't his problem. It wasn't even his species. Saving it could cost him his job, his freedom, maybe even his life. But every time he looked down, those silver eyes looked back at him. They weren't just eyes. They were a plea, silent but desperate. The child trusted him. And that trust made turning back impossible. David slowed down after a while, hiding behind a thick tree. He pressed his back against the rough bark, trying to steady his breath. The hunters were still out there. He could hear them, low voices, mechanical hums, and the occasional rustle of armored feet moving through the undergrowth. They were searching, and they were close. He glanced at the child. It was shivering, clutching the pendant at its neck tightly, as if the small object was its only comfort in this terrifying moment. David studied it for a second. The pendant wasn't just jewelry. It looked like a device, small lights flickering faintly along its edges. He didn't know what it did, but it had to mean something important. The child whimpered softly. David hushed him gently. "It's all right. I've got you," he whispered, though he wasn't sure of that at all. The inner struggle. For a long moment, David stayed still, thinking. He had two choices. Choice one, put the child down, step away, and let the hunters find it. He could tell himself it wasn't his fight. He could live with the excuse that he was only human, and humans weren't ready to get tangled in alien affairs. Choice two, keep running, protect the child, and make himself the enemy of whoever those hunters were. If they found him, they might kill him without hesitation. The safe choice was clear. Leave the child. Walk away. Pretend this never happened. But David wasn't built for that. He remembered his own childhood, the times when he had been lost, when he had wished someone would come for him. He remembered his father's words, "Son, real courage is not about fighting. It's about protecting the ones who cannot protect themselves." Looking down at the trembling child, he knew the decision was already made. David chose to protect. The first move, he tightened his grip on the child and leaned close. "Listen, little one. I don't know if you understand me, but I won't leave you. Not now. Not ever." The child blinked at him slowly, and then, to David's surprise, it reached up and touched his face. Its small fingers glowed faintly, leaving trails of light on his skin. For just a second, he felt warmth spread through him, a strange energy that calmed his racing heart. Then the child pulled back, weak but comforted. That was all the answer David needed. He rose quietly and began moving again, careful not to step on dry leaves. His plan was simple. Get back to the research outpost, There, maybe he could hide the child, maybe even send a signal for help. At least it would be safer than the open forest. But as he moved, he realized the hunters were tracking him faster than he expected. Their strange technology was scanning the ground. The glow from the child's skin, once a gentle comfort, was now a dangerous beacon. David took off his jacket and wrapped it around the child, dimming the light. The child snuggled into his chest, silent but trusting. The chase, suddenly, a sharp sound echoed through the woods. A beam of light shot past David, striking a tree and burning a hole through the bark. The hunters had spotted him. "Move!" he hissed to himself as he ran. Branches whipped against his face. The child clung to him tighter, its small body trembling behind him. The hunters were closing in, their footsteps heavy and precise. They were faster than him, stronger than him, and better equipped. But David had one advantage: they didn't know the forest the way he did. He turned sharply, slipping through narrow gaps, crossing a small stream, and climbing up a slope where the ground was loose and rocky. His legs burned, but he didn't stop. Every step mattered. Every step was a choice. Another blast hit the ground near him, throwing dirt into the air. He coughed but kept running. The moment of decision at last, David stumbled into a small cave hidden behind thick vines. He ducked inside, pressing his back against the stone wall, his chest heaving. For now he was hidden. The child lay against him, exhausted but alive. He knew this couldn't last. The hunters would not give up. Sooner or later, they would find him. He looked at the child again. Its silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark, filled with both fear and hope. And at that moment, David realized something powerful. This child wasn't just lost. It was being hunted for a reason. Someone wanted it captured or destroyed. And now, by saving it, he had made himself part of that reason. His choice was clear. He wouldn't hand the child over. He wouldn't walk away. He would fight, hide, run, whatever it took. Because sometimes, protecting one small life could mean everything. The cliffhanger outside the cave, the sound of footsteps grew louder. The hunters were near. One of them spoke. In a low, mechanical voice, words David didn't understand. But the tone was cold and certain. The child pressed its pendant, and suddenly, a faint hum filled the cave. The lights on the pendant grew brighter. David stared, his eyes wide. What are you doing?" he whispered. The child looked at him, then at the cave entrance. Its tiny hand pointed upward, and in that instant, David realized this was no ordinary pendant. It was a call for something. Or someone. And whatever answered might change everything. Danger in the shadows. Cave was silent, except for David's ragged breathing and the faint hum from the pendant in the alien child's hand. The glow it gave off lit the rough stone walls, casting long shadows that looked alive. The child's silver eyes stared at the entrance, wide and unblinking, as if it knew something. David didn't, single quotes T. David held the child close, listening. Outside, the hunters moved through the forest, their heavy footsteps echoing like thunder. He could hear their voices, low, metallic, and cold. Though he could not understand the words, he understood their intent. They would not stop until the child was found. His heart pounded. He looked at the small being in his arms, so fragile yet holding something powerful enough to call attention from the stars. The pendant pulsed again, and David wondered, what is this child carrying? Why is it so important that someone would send hunters after it? The sound of footsteps grew closer. One of the hunters was right outside the cave now. The silent standoff. David pressed himself against the stone wall, his hand over the child's mouth to keep it quiet. The alien trembled, but didn't cry out. It trusted him, even in its fear. The hunter stopped just outside. Through the thin gap in the vines that covered the cave, David could see a tall figure in black armor. Its helmet glowed faintly red, scanning the area. In its hand was a weapon, humming with deadly energy. David didn't breathe. Neither did the child. For a moment, time froze. The hunter tilted its head, as if it could sense something. Its weapon lifted slightly. One wrong sound, one slip, and they would be found. Then a distant call echoed from the trees. Another hunter's voice, sharp and commanding. The armored figure turned, hesitated for a moment, and then walked away. David exhaled, his whole body trembling. That had been too close. The child's secret inside the cave. The pendant in the child's hands flickered more strongly now, sending out short pulses of light. David frowned. "What are you doing with that thing?" he whispered. The child looked at him and pressed the glowing surface again. A faint holographic image shimmered in the air above its strange symbols, alien shapes and the image of a tall, radiant figure. David didn't understand the language, but the emotion was clear. It was a call. A beacon. The child's eyes filled with tears as it clutched the device closer. David suddenly understood. The pendant wasn't just a tool. It was a message. A way to reach someone. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's people. But calling out for help also meant risk. Whoever was chasing the child could detect the signal too. David rubbed his forehead. He felt trapped between two dangers, the hunters outside, and the unknown force the pendant might bring. Still, when he looked into the child's pleading eyes, he couldn't tell it to stop. The child needed hope. It needed its mother. A dangerous plan the hunters weren't leaving. Their voices still echoed faintly through the trees. If he stayed in the cave, they would eventually find him. David knew he had to move. But moving meant risk, open ground, less cover, more danger. He took a deep breath. "All right," he whispered to the child. "We can't stay here. We're going to run, but you have to stay quiet, understand?" The child blinked once, as if it understood. It nestled against him, small arms wrapping around his neck. David tightened his grip and peered out through the vines. The forest was dark now, lit only by moonlight and the occasional glow from the hunters' weapons. Shadows danced across the trees, hiding both safety and danger. He waited for the moment when the nearest hunter turned away, then slipped silently out of the cave and into the forest. The chase begins. At first, he thought he was safe. The forest swallowed him, and he moved quickly, using every ounce of skill he had to remain silent. But then, behind him, a metallic growl cut through the night. They had found his trail. A blast of energy streaked past him, striking the tree and exploding bark everywhere. David ducked, clutching the child tighter. He broke into a run, weaving through the trees, his boots pounding against the dirt. The hunters were faster. Their armored feet thudded like drums. More blasts shot past, lighting the night with deadly flashes. David zigzagged, using the terrain to his advantage. He leapt over roots, slid down a small slope, and darted behind fallen logs. The child clung to him, silent but shaking. One blast grazed his arm, burning his jacket. He bit back a cry, forcing himself to keep running. The forest fights back. Desperation pushed him onward until he stumbled into a part of the forest he didn't recognize. The trees here were thicker, twisted, and covered in strange glowing moss. The air buzzed faintly, as if alive with unseen energy. The hunters slowed. For the first time, David heard hesitation in their steps. They scanned the area but did not rush forward. The child stirred in his arms, looking around with wide eyes. Then it touched the glowing moss gently. The plant responded, flaring brighter. The whole forest seemed to shiver. David realized with a shock, this wasn't just a forest. It was something alive, something connected to the child. The hunters fired again, but this time the moss responded. The light spread from tree to tree, creating a blinding wall of brightness. The blasts were absorbed, swallowed by the living glow. The hunters growled in frustration, their weapons flickering. For the first time, David saw fear in their movements, the whisper in the dark using the distraction. David slipped deeper into the glowing forest. But as he moved, he began to hear something else. A whisper. Soft, almost like a voice carried on. The wind. He stopped, listening. The child looked up at him, its silver eyes glowing brighter now, as if it too heard the call. Is that for you? David asked softly. The child pressed its pendant again, and the whisper grew stronger. Not words he could understand, but filled with comfort and warmth. The child reached out, pointing toward the sky. David followed its gaze. High above, through a gap in the trees, the stars shone, and among them, a faint light was moving. Not a star, a ship. Hope surged in his chest. Help was coming. But so was more danger. The cliffhanger behind them. The hunters roared in anger, breaking through the glowing forest's defenses. Their weapons flared again, lighting up the night. David ran, clutching the child, heading toward the clearing where the sky was open. The whispers grew louder, the pendant glowing like a beacon. But as he reached the edge of the forest, his hope turned cold. Standing there, blocking the path, was a new figure. Taller than the others, its armor heavier, its weapon larger. Its red visor glared at him like fire. The leader of the hunters. And it had been waiting for him. The clearing was silent, except for David's pounding heart. The leader of the hunters stood tall in the moonlight, its black armor shining like obsidian, its red visor glowing with menace. Behind it, the other hunters gathered, their weapons raised and humming with deadly energy. David froze. His legs trembled, but he kept the child held tightly against his chest. The little one's silver eyes reflected the red glow of the hunters' visors. It whimpered softly, burying its face into David's neck. For a moment, David felt utterly powerless. He was only a man, flesh, blood, and fear. Against these armored beings, he had no weapon, no armor, nothing but his will. Yet he refused to set the child down. The leader raised its weapon slowly, aiming it directly at him. The air burned with tension, but then, something unexpected happened. The pendant in the child's hand pulsed brightly, casting a wave of light across the clearing. The hunters staggered back, shielding themselves from the sudden glow. For just a few seconds, the forest was lit as bright as day. David didn't waste the chance. He sprinted to the side, weaving into the trees once more, heart racing as blasts of energy chased him. The ground shook, branches shattered, but somehow he kept moving, driven by something deeper than fear. A fragile shelter, at last, after what felt like hours, he stumbled into a sheltered grove, hidden beneath giant roots of an ancient tree. Exhausted, he collapsed to his knees, clutching the child close. The alien child was trembling, its small body shivering with exhaustion. David could feel how weak it had become. Its glow, once bright, was dimming. "Hey," he whispered, gently setting it down on the soft moss. "It's okay, we're safe, at least for now." The child looked at him, eyes glassy with exhaustion. Then, slowly, it reached out a small hand and touched his chest right over his heart. David froze. The touch was warm, almost electric. For a moment, he felt his fear ease, his breath steady. The bond between them grew stronger, wordless but real. The child gave a faint smile, a fragile, innocent smile that pierced through all the terror of the night. David couldn't help but smile back, even though tears threatened to fill his eyes. Shared meal from his pack, David pulled out some food, a piece of dried bread and a small fruit. He broke the bread and offered it. At first, the child hesitated, then sniffed it curiously before nibbling. Its eyes lit up as it tasted it, and it ate hungrily, crumbs falling on the moss. David chuckled softly. "Guess some things don't change, huh? Hungry kids are the same everywhere." He handed the fruit, and the child bit into it with delight, juices dripping down its chin. For the first time, David heard it laugh, soft, musical, and pure. It wasn't just a sound. It was hope. That laugh made every risk worth it. The child's gift. When they finished eating, the child leaned closer. Its small hands glowed faintly as it touched David's burned sleeve from earlier. The fabric crumbled away, revealing the scorch mark on his arm where a blast had grazed him. The child pressed its glowing fingers against the wound. David gasped. Warmth spread through his arm, tingling, and then pain vanished. The burn mark faded until it was gone, as if it had never existed. David stared in disbelief. You healed me." The child tilted its head, silver eyes shining. As if proud of what it had done, David felt a lump in his throat. This wasn't just a child in need. It carried something extraordinary inside it, power, compassion, and trust. He whispered softly, "You saved me too." Stories in the dark, the forest outside was alive with danger, but in the grove, time slowed. David sat with the child beside him, both wrapped in his jacket for warmth. He spoke softly, telling stories of his home, his world. He told of the small town he had grown up in, the nights under the stars when he used to wonder if someone was looking back from another sky. He told of his mother, who once said, "Kindness is the only thing that lives longer than we do." The child listened, tilting its head, eyes wide with wonder. It didn't understand every word, but it understood the feeling. It leaned against his side, comforted by his voice. For the first time in his life, David didn't feel alone. The bond deepens. Hours passed in silence. The hunters were still out there. David could hear distant blasts echoing, but for now, they were safe. He looked down at the child, now sleeping peacefully against him. Its glow had steadied, faint but calm. Like a heartbeat in the dark, something shifted inside David. At first, he had seen the child as a responsibility, a burden he couldn't abandon. But now he realized it was more than that. He cared deeply. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about family, about a connection that crossed species, language, and stars. He whispered into the night, "I'll keep you safe, no matter what it takes." A warning from the forest. Just as his eyes began to close, the forest stirred. The glowing moss flickered rapidly, as if alarmed. David's head shot up. In the distance, a low growl echoed, mechanical, heavy. The hunters were returning, sweeping the forest with stronger weapons. The child stirred, clutching his arm. Its pendant glowed faintly again, sending pulses into the air. David realized with a chill, the signal was growing stronger. Something was answering the call. The hunters must have realized it too. And they would stop at nothing to cut the signal off. The cliffhanger. David stood, holding the child tightly once more. His legs ached, his body begged for rest. But there was no time. Through the trees, a red glow spread. The hunters were coming, closer than before. The child looked up at him, silver eyes full of trust. It whispered something faint, its first word. David couldn't understand the language, but the meaning was clear. "Don't give up." He swallowed hard, heart pounding. He had promised to protect this child. And he would. Somewhere above, a ship was drawing near. Somewhere beyond, the mother was coming. But first, he would have to survive the night. The mother arrives. The forest trembled. David stood at the edge of the grove, clutching the alien child close. The glow from its pendant pulsed faster now, casting waves of light through the trees. It was no longer a quiet beacon. It was calling with urgency. Above the forest, the sky shifted. A faint hum filled the air, low at first, then rising like a storm. Leaves shook from the branches, animals scattered in panic, and even the hunters froze, tilting their heads toward the heavens. David looked up. At first, he thought it was a star. Then the light grew larger, brighter, until it became a shape, an enormous ship descending silently from the sky. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The craft shimmered with flowing colors, shifting between silver, blue, and violet, as though made from living light. Its sheer size blotted out the stars above, yet it moved with grace, not power. The ground shook as it drew nearer, casting a Glow across the forest that turned night into dawn. The child stirred in his arms, its silver eyes wide and wet with tears. Its small voice whispered a single word, soft, but filled with relief: "Mother." The hunters' desperation, the hunters roared in frustration. Their leader lifted its weapon, shouting in a guttural, metallic voice. The soldiers spread out, their red visors blazing. They weren't just chasing anymore, they were preparing to kill. Energy blasts lit up the trees, striking branches and tearing holes into the ground. The forest itself cried out, the glowing moss shrinking away from the heat. David ducked low, shielding the child with his body. His heart raced, but he held his ground. The ship above was descending fast, but would it arrive in time? The child pressed its pendant again. This time, the glow expanded into a shield of light around them. The hunter's blast struck it, but the shield held, shimmering with each impact. Still, David could feel the pressure. The barrier was weakening. The child was too exhausted to keep it up for long. The arrival, a sudden beam of pure white light, shot down from the ship, striking the clearing where the hunters stood. The air cracked with energy. The hunters staggered back, their weapons flickering, and then she appeared. Descending within the beam was a figure taller than any human, her presence both terrifying and beautiful. Her body glowed with the same faint blue light as the child, but stronger, radiant. Her silver eyes burned brighter than stars, and her long, flowing robes shimmered with shifting patterns like the night sky. This was no ordinary being. She was a mother and something far more. The hunters fell silent, even they seemed hesitant. Their leader stepped forward, growling words in a harsh language. But she did not answer him. Her gaze moved past them, past the chaos, and locked directly onto David. The meeting of eyes for a long moment. David couldn't breathe. Her eyes weren't cold or cruel. They were deep, endless, filled with a power he could not understand, but also with something familiar, something human. Gratitude. The child wriggled in his arms, reaching toward her. "Mother," it cried again, louder this time. David's knees trembled. He slowly stepped forward, holding the child out. He expected anger, suspicion, maybe even death for daring to touch her child. Instead, she lowered herself gently, her glowing hands reaching to take the small one. The child leapt into her arms, clinging tightly, burying its face in her shoulder. Her expression softened, eyes closing as she whispered words too quiet for David to understand. For a moment, mother and child were one again. David felt his chest tighten. The sight was so raw, so pure, that it pushed away all fear. More than thanks. Then she looked back at him. David braced himself. His hands curled into fists, ready to fight or flee. But instead of anger, she did something unexpected. She bowed. Not deeply, but enough. A gesture of respect. David froze. He had never seen a being of such power bow before. Her voice filled the air, not spoken, but carried directly into his mind. The words were clear, though her lips did not move. "You protected what is most precious. Few would have done the same. You are more than what I was told humans could be." David swallowed hard, struggling to find words. I just did what anyone would." Her silver eyes softened. "No, many would have walked away, but you chose to protect. That choice is rare." The gift of vision. She lifted a hand, placing it gently against David's forehead. His body stiffened as warmth spread through him, flooding his mind with light. In an instant, he saw vision cities of light among the stars, alien worlds full of beauty, ships gliding through endless skies. He saw humanity's future, not small and fragile, but vast and strong, walking among the stars as equals. Then the vision shifted. He saw wars, struggles, dangers waiting beyond. But in each image, he saw humans standing tall, never breaking, always choosing courage. When the light faded, David fell to his knees, gasping. His mind swirled with awe. What was that? he whispered. Her voice answered gently. A glimpse of what may come. A gift for your choice. The hunters' defeat. The hunters roared again, breaking the silence. Their leader charged. Weapon raised, the mother turned, her silver eyes flashing. With a single wave of her hand, a wall of light burst outward, throwing the hunters back like leaves in the wind. Their weapons shattered, their armor cracked, and they lay groaning in the dirt. The leader tried to rise, but she spoke one word, a command, and the hunter froze, its body trembling before collapsing into silence. David stared in shock. She hadn't just defeated them. She had broken them with almost no effort. The farewell. She turned back to David, holding her child close. The little one peeked at him over her shoulder, smiling faintly. The mother spoke again, her voice soft in his. Mind. You will not be forgotten. What you did here will echo far beyond this night. David opened his mouth, but no words came. He wanted to say stay, or don't leave me with only visions, but nothing left his lips. She stepped back into the beam of light, her child safe in her arms. Slowly, the two of them rose, ascending toward the great ship above. David's eyes stung as he watched them go. Part of him felt relief, part of him felt loss. And deep inside, he knew his life would never be the same. The ship shimmered once, then shot into the sky, leaving only silence behind. The cliffhanger. David stood alone in the clearing, breathing hard. The hunters were gone, the mother and child were gone, and the forest was quiet again. But in his hand, he found something new. A small shard of light rested in his palm, glowing faintly. He hadn't taken it, it had been given to him. A final gift. It pulsed like a heartbeat, carrying the same energy he had felt in her touch. David stared at it, his mind racing. What was it? A weapon? A key? A message? Whatever it was, it wasn't just for him. It was for humanity. And it meant his journey was only beginning. Asterisk. The shocking gift. The clearing was empty. The glow of the great ship had faded into the night sky, and silence returned to the forest. But for David, silence did not mean peace. His hands trembled as he stared at the small shard of light resting in his palm. It wasn't a stone. It wasn't metal. It wasn't anything he recognized. The shard pulsed softly, almost like it was alive, beating in rhythm with his own heart. Every time it pulsed, warmth spread up his arm, filling his chest with a strange calm. David swallowed hard. What are you? He whispered. The shard pulsed again, brighter this time. As if answering the weight of the gift, David slipped the shard into his jacket pocket. Even hidden, it glowed faintly, casting light through the fabric. He looked around the forest. The hunters' broken bodies were gone, vanished, perhaps taken away by whatever power the alien mother had used. He was alone. Alone with something that was clearly not meant for him. He thought about what she had said. What you did here will echo far beyond this night. It wasn't just a thank you. It was a responsibility. David felt the weight of it pressing down on him. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't a soldier. He was just a man, living quietly at a research outpost on the edge of nowhere. And yet, he had been chosen. Why him? The forest responds. As he walked back through the glowing forest, he noticed something strange. Wherever he stepped, the moss shimmered brighter, as if reacting to the shard in his pocket. The trees seemed to bend slightly toward him, their faint hum syncing with the shard's pulse. It was as if the whole forest knew. David stopped and pulled the shard out again. He held it up, watching as the light spread in gentle waves. The child had used its pendant to call for help. Was this shard the same? A communication device? A beacon? Or something far more dangerous? The thought chilled him. If this was powerful enough to summon ships from the stars, what would happen if the wrong people got it? Visions of tomorrow. That night, David made it back to the abandoned outpost. The small station was dark, its power weak, but it was shelter. He locked the doors, checked the windows, and then finally sat down. Exhausted, he pulled the shard out once more and placed it on the table. The moment it touched the surface, the shard expanded, projecting a field of light across the room. David gasped as the air filled with images, holograms dancing around him. He saw cities unlike anything on Earth, towers of crystal and energy stretching into skies filled with alien ships. He saw oceans with glowing creatures swimming beneath. Purple waves. He saw endless deserts where machines walked like giants, and forests alive with light. Then the images changed. He saw Earth, familiar landscapes, human cities, people walking the streets. But there was something different: humans standing alongside alien beings, trading, laughing, building together. And then war. He saw fire raining from the skies. He saw ships tearing through Earth's atmosphere. He saw humans fighting desperately, united but outnumbered. Yet in the chaos he saw hope. He saw humans standing firm, refusing to bend, even when faced with overwhelming odds. The visions ended, suddenly, leaving David trembling. Sweat dripped from his forehead, his breath sharp and uneven. The shard dimmed, returning to its quiet glow. The meaning of the gift. David stared at it, his mind spinning. The mother hadn't given him just a trinket. She had given him knowledge. A warning. A choice. This shard was proof of life beyond Earth. Proof of humanity's place among the stars. It was a key to the future. But the future was both beautiful and terrifying. If he revealed this shard to the world, everything would change. Governments would fight to own it. Corporations would kill for it. Scientists would tear it apart, and yet keeping it secret might mean losing the chance to prepare for what was coming. David buried his face in his hands. He didn't ask for this. He just wanted to help a child. But now that single act had put the fate of his entire species into his hands. The shadow returns. The outpost creaked in the wind. David leaned back, trying to steady himself, when suddenly he felt a cold presence. Outside. He froze, listening. Footsteps. Heavy, metallic. His blood ran cold. The hunters? He thought the mother had destroyed them, but perhaps not all. He snatched the shard and slipped it into his pocket, heart racing. He moved to the window, peeking out. There, at the edge of the clearing, stood a figure. Not armored like the hunters, but cloaked, its face hidden beneath a hood. The figure didn't move. It just stood, watching. David stepped back, his breath shallow. Whoever they were, they knew. The shard pulsed harder in his pocket, as if warning him. The shocking realization suddenly, a thought struck him. What if this wasn't just a gift? What if it was a test? The mother had shown him visions. She had shown him humanity's future, but the shard was the key to making that future real. Perhaps she hadn't chosen him by accident. Perhaps she wanted to see what a human would do when given the power to shape the stars. David clenched his fists. This wasn't just about him anymore. It wasn't even about the alien child. This was about humanity itself, and humanity was not ready. The cliffhanger outside. The cloaked figure finally moved. Slowly, it lifted its head. Two faint red lights glowed beneath the hood. David's heart stopped. Not all the hunters had been defeated. One had survived. And it had found him. He grabbed the shard tightly, its light burning against his palm. He didn't know if it could be used as a weapon, or if it was only a vision. But he had no choice. The mother had trusted him with this. And now as the shadow approached, David realized what more than thanks truly meant. It meant carrying a gift powerful enough to save or doom the future of his entire world. The legacy. The night was still, yet David felt anything but calm. The cloaked figure stood just outside the outpost, silent, watching. Two red lights glowed faintly beneath its hood eyes, sharp and burning. It wasn't gone. A hunter had survived. David's chest tightened. His mind screamed for him to run, to hide, but deep down he knew this would not end unless he faced it. The shard in his palm pulsed harder now. light spilling between his fingers. It was alive, urging him, calling him. The alien mother had given it to him for a reason, and maybe that reason was now. The confrontation, the figure stepped forward. Its movements were deliberate, controlled, filled with menace. The red glow grew brighter with every step. David backed away into the outpost, his breath shallow. The hunter spoke at last, its voice low and metallic, words filled with venom. David didn't understand the language, but the tone was clear, a promise of death. The door creaked as the hunter pushed against it, its strength far beyond human. David stumbled back, clutching the shard tightly, then light exploded. The shard burst from his hand, hovering in the air. Its glow expanded, filling the outpost with brilliance. For a moment, the hunter staggered, blinded. David shielded his eyes, heart racing. The shard projected shape symbols, images, and then the child. Not the child as he remembered it, but a vision of it, standing tall, older, radiant. The voice that followed was not the child's but its echo, carried through the shard. The one who protects without fear, the one who chooses kindness, becomes the bridge. David's breath caught. The shard wasn't just a gift. It was a seed, something planted in him, meant to grow. The battle for survival. The hunter roared, tearing its hood back to reveal a scarred, metallic face, half machine, half creature. Its red eyes blazed, and with a single strike, it shattered. The door, stepping inside, David stumbled back, but the shard hovered between them, glowing brighter. The hunter raised its weapon, a blade crackling with energy. It slashed at the shard, but the light held, forcing the blade away. Sparks showered the room. David realized the shard wasn't fighting for him, it was waiting for him. Waiting for his choice. His heart pounded. He had no training, no weapon. Just the shard, and his will. He stepped forward, placing his hand into the light. At once, energy surged through him. His veins burned with fire, his vision flooded with brilliance. He could see the hunter's movements before they happened, as if time itself had slowed. The shard fused into his palm, its light spreading through his body. The fight was no longer one-sided. The turning point, the hunter lunged, blade swinging. David moved instinctively, dodging, faster than he should have been able to. He grabbed a broken pipe from the floor, and though it was nothing compared to the hunter's weapon, when the shard's light flowed through it, it blazed like a staff of fire. He struck. The hunter staggered back, roaring, its armor scorched by the light. It attacked again, furious, but David blocked, sparks and light clashing in the dark room. Every strike rattled his bones, but he didn't give up. He couldn't. The child's whisper from before echoed in his mind. "Don't give up." With a final cry, David swung the glowing staff, striking the hunter's chest. The armor cracked, light pouring through. The creature froze, its red eyes flickering, before collapsing into silence. David stood trembling, sweat dripping down his face, the staff fading back into a broken pipe. The shard's glow returned to his hand, calm once more. It was over. Choice of legacy. The outpost was quiet again. The hunter's body lay still, broken. David sank to the floor, gasping for breath. The shard pulsed gently in his palm, no longer wild, but steady. Visions flickered once more. He saw Earth again, its people, its cities. He saw humanity standing at a crossroads. The shard whispered not in words, but in feelings. Choice, responsibility, legacy. David realized the truth. The alien mother had not just thanked him, she had chosen him. She had given him a tool, a vision, and now a decision. What would he do with it? He could hide it, bury it, live quietly, and let humanity stumble blindly into whatever future awaited. Or he could reveal it, share it with the world, knowing it would bring chaos, danger, and change, but also hope. The human answer. David stood, slowly clutching the shard. He walked outside into the clearing. The forest glowed faintly, the stars shining above. He looked at the sky, remembering the mother's eyes, the child's trust, the visions of war and peace. He whispered softly, not to the shard, not to the aliens, but to himself. Humans aren't perfect. We fight, we fear, we make mistakes. But we also protect, we also care. And sometimes, one act of kindness changes everything. The shard pulsed, as if agreeing. David smiled faintly. All right, if this is humanity's chance, then I'll take it. The dawn of a legacy. As dawn broke, light spilled across the forest. The nightmare of the night before felt distant, but David knew it was only the beginning. The alien mother had given him more than thanks. She had given him a piece of the stars, a responsibility no human had ever carried before. He didn't know what the future would bring: friendship, war, discovery, or destruction. But he knew one thing: humanity was no longer alone, and because of one choice, one bond, one act of courage, the universe would never see them the same way again. David tightened his grip on the shard, turning toward the horizon. His journey wasn't over. It was only beginning. Asterisk.